So one of the biggest questions that fans have had since the Hogwarts Legacy gameplay reveal back in March, will we be able to play Quidditch? And today I'm reporting that according to multiple sources close to the project, Hogwarts Legacy will not feature playable Quidditch. Please, don't hate the messenger, guys. And honestly, don't hate on Avalanche either. I understand it. I'll explain why.
Now, I'm sure you all have so many questions, so I'm going to try and answer several of what I anticipate will be the most frequently asked questions. I'll also explain why I'm personally okay with this decision here in a bit, but first, I think it's important to note this does not mean Quidditch will be completely absent from the world in Hogwarts Legacy.
I mean, it's not like they're going to pretend it doesn't exist or something.
I mean, if you think back to the gameplay reveal trailer, it clearly shows the Quidditch pitch and what appears to be characters wearing Quidditch robes. Then you have the ASMR video, which also gave us a look at quality Quidditch supplies. So Quidditch will still be part of this world. It may even factor into the story. We may even see people playing Quidditch. I don't know. What I'm confirming today, though, is that it will not be playable for our character. All right, so let's try and tackle some of those questions that I know you have, and I expect the biggest one to be why? Why would they not include Quidditch? Well, if you go back to the 2020 blog post from Adrian Ropp, he said, quote, "Often the difficult task is choosing which details we aren't going to explore." Close quote. I honestly think it was simply a matter of managing the resources and trying to decide what all they wanted to include from the wizarding world, simply because there is so much. It's such a deep and rich world, some sacrifices had to be made. In another blog post from Community Manager Chandler Wood, he said he asked Game Director Alan Tew what fans love and expect from the wizarding world, and that their resulting conversations could fill tomes because of the sheer amount of everything that could be included. Then Chandler goes on to try and get him to narrow it down to just 2 sentences, and Tew told him, quote, "The most ever-present part of the wizarding world is its magic, and the playful nature and realness of its distinct rules should fuel a surprising, dark mystery that tests the combined resources of those who discover it. But just as important are the opportunities to experience hundreds of memorable moments, small and large, that fans grew up with and know by heart, from being sorted in the Great Hall, exploring a new secret chamber in Hogwarts, or impersonating others with Polyjuice Potion, to protecting innocence from a dangerous troll, dodging fireballs from a Hungarian Horntail, or soaring into the sky on the back of a friendly Hippogriff." I mean, that is one heck of a list right there, guys, and seemingly confirmation that we're going to get all of those or something close to that in Hogwarts Legacy. And really, this is part of the reason that I'm okay with this decision, and I understand it. Trust me, I know there are a lot of you out there who are going to be really upset by this, who really wanted Quidditch. Trust me, I get it. But think about it like this for a second. Would you really have wanted them to devote a ton of time and resources to focusing on Quidditch, which was big enough to get its own full game back with Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup years ago, when they could instead be focusing on perfecting, say, the spellcasting system or fleshing out more story details? What about adding more hidden passages in Hogwarts or working on the vendors and cosmetic upgrades in Hogsmeade? I mean, as much as I love Quidditch, there are plenty of other things on that list that I think are much more important. And I think as fans, we just have to trust that this is going to make for a better overall game, as it does allow Avalanche to focus on the most important parts of an action RPG, which, let's be honest here, the story, the spells, the gameplay mechanics of spell casting, the collectibles, side quests, Hogwarts itself, and all of the secrets are just far more important than including playable Quidditch, which, truth be told, would really be a side activity that not even everyone would want to participate in. I mean, let's try and think about it like this. If they did try and include playable Quidditch, then they would have to make even more sacrifices. Like, is it part of the story to have the player character participate, or do we make it a completely optional thing? And if it's only optional, then how do we really justify spending a lot of time and resources on this? Should they force them into the secret position like we did with Harry, or do they try and include all the positions? Do they have a Quidditch Cup that sets matches against other houses? I mean, the list goes on and on. Another question I expect to get on this is how sure I am, and can I reveal the sources? I would say I'm about 98% sure, barring something drastic changing, I'm about 98% sure that this will be true. I'm very confident in these sources, and no, unfortunately, I cannot disclose them. That's just not how this works, guys. And if you choose not to believe, look, totally okay by me. I get it. You're right to be skeptical. I'm not an IGN. I'm not a GameStop. I'm just a dad who loves games and the stories they tell. Another expected question. Do I think there's still time to add Quidditch, or could we get it later on? So definite no on the first one, but on the second one, I'll say maybe. In that blog post I mentioned, Alan Tew had a line near the end where he said, "With your continued support, we hope to explore even more in the future." As soon as I read that, it immediately sounded to me like the possibility of DLC and maybe even sequels. So I do think, and this is purely me guessing here, no sources or anything on this, I do think if this game is successful and they continue to hear a strong fan desire for Quidditch, they could very well look into adding it later down the line, maybe as post-launch DLC. I mean, we do have to remember, we know that flying on a broom is 100% for sure in the game, so they would already have that kind of baseline to help them if they wanted to build a Quidditch game on top of that. But then we get into that question of resources again. Would fans really want an added Quidditch mode more so than, say, a new story DLC? I mean, if I'm WB, I think these are all things that they would be listening to if this game is successful, which I think it will be, they're going to be listening to the fans. What do the fans want more of? What do the fans want out of Hogwarts Legacy? Do the fans want a completely new game? Who knows? Maybe someone would even consider a brand new Quidditch World Cup game if there's enough demand. Honestly, this would be my personal preference. I would love if a developer, whether it's Avalanche or someone else, was given the proper time and care to be able to make a fully developed standalone Quidditch game with multiplayer. I'd much prefer that than sort of a small tacked on mode to Hogwarts Legacy, but I mean, I could see it going either way depending on the fan reaction and fan response.
Now, while today's news story answers one of the big questions that we still had about the game, there are still plenty that we don't know the answer to. In fact, I've already made a video on the top questions that I still have for Hogwarts Legacy. You can check it out on the right side of your screen now. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.